let's do this. All right. And we are going to go in 5, 4, 3.
Like a gummy bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for January 24th, 2025. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, Ninja Gaiden is back again and again. And why doesn't Capcom just tell us which Resident Evil it's remaking next? But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host of Game Mess Mornings. It's Merritt K, everybody. Merritt, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good, Jeff. How are you?
I'm excellent. Yeah, I'm ready for the weekend, but it was a good week of shows. Ready to do a good show with you. Kind of just trying to be in a good mood. Try not to let things get to me too much. It's difficult, especially it's been like 9 degrees every day here.
Oh my God, it's so cold where I am too.
Yes,
it's brutal.
It's brutal. Like it hurts, and I like the cold. Yeah. I like the winter. But
sure, but you're taking chip damage inside. It's brutal.
Exactly. I want to go for a walk, and it's like, oh, that's just not an option. So it was getting to me, but I'm trying to recognize that, have some mindfulness, and not let it tear me down and put me in a bad mood. So yeah, but that's been a battle. But I'm like, okay, I think I'm getting back. On my feet there. So yeah, having a good time. How have you been?
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, yeah, I'm kind of freezing up in Canada. It's It's frigid. But that's normal. It should be cold this time of year, right? I don't know. We should just kind of accept that. But yeah, it's been a good start to the new year so far. Trying to get back into playing some newer games. I've been into some older stuff lately, but catching up on some stuff and playing Donkey Kong Country Returns for the third time in 10 years, which is they just keep putting that one out, huh?
Just charge $60 again. Why not?
Yeah. Frame rate's not as good as on the Wii as I remember, but that's okay.
Yeah, I keep seeing people play it. The re-release just came out, everybody, and I'm like, I should play it again. I like Donkey Kong Country Returns. I don't know if I love it as much as some people do. I think it's just a really good, solid platformer.
I keep hearing the Tropical Freeze. My friend Danielle Riendo from Fanbyte and now Game Industry is just a huge stan of that game, of Tropical Freeze. And one day I'll play it, but it's just whenever I go in the eShop, I'm like, I would love to play a Nintendo platformer at $40, but man, 60 is kind of pushing it,
Yep, absolutely. I believe I just killed my camera. Okay, there, it's back.
You did.
My camera might be broke for you still, though. Either that comes back or it doesn't. I'm sorry. We'll see. I definitely just tried to put my feet up. I kicked a cord, and then I heard the USB disconnect sound in Windows. It's just... I don't care anymore, Merritt. I got to be honest, I just don't care anymore. It's just, I'm going to kick stuff, the computer's going to break. We're all just going to have to deal with it. Are there any new games that you're kind of eyeing? Because I've definitely been mentioning on this show since the beginning of the year where I'm having a hard time paying attention to stuff and feeling like I can give myself over completely to a new game. Part of that is there's a couple games I'm trying to clear up from last year. And part of it is just, I don't know, just not in the mood in the moment.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I picked up this came out last year, but I've been playing the Shadow Generations, Sonic Generations, remake sequel thing.
Right, yes.
It's kind of a weird hybrid. So I've been working through that, and I don't know, the new Doom looks cool. I was a big fan of Doom Eternal. I really loved that. I know some people weren't crazy about how many little finicky weapons and items they gave you to work with, but once you got into a flow with that game, it seemed really cool. So it'll be interesting to see how they slow that down for Dark Ages.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Let's get into it because that's one of the games we could talk about. Let's explain what we do here first. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with everything announced at Microsoft's January Xbox Developer Direct. This is from Nicole Carpenter at Polygon. Microsoft had a show yesterday. They showed off the 4 games as promised. There was a bonus game. The big surprising game that they were teasing was indeed Ninja Gaiden 4 from Team Ninja and Platinum Games, partnering up to work with them. Apparently been in the works for quite some time, because this game is coming out this fall, and it looked really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, Platinum has been kind of like MIA for a while,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this, of all of the things that they could be like, oh, they're back with, is like Ninja Gaiden. Like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
that's crazy. Like, okay, I'm actually pretty hyped for that.
Yeah, I was I kind of heard this, but I'm not sure what to expect. Sure, like they should do that. Are they going to try to kind of change things up? It's like, no, it looks like they're going to just make a sick ass action game. It's what Ninja Gaiden should obviously be. But yeah, just totally shocked that Team Ninja, Platinum Games working together on this. I think it's going to be really promising, though. They also kind of, at the time when they announced this, had a little tease at the end. Like, oh, and here's something extra. Ninja Gaiden 2 Black also announced, and Shadow dropped. So people are playing that right now. That one was seemingly just Team Ninja remaking that in Unreal Engine 5. Apparently, it's on Game Pass. A lot of people played it right away. Running very well on Xbox. Heard some issues with the PC version. That's the one I'm going to try here pretty soon.
Yeah, same here.
But I've not done that yet. Watched some people play it. That also God, man, that game also was always very cool.
Yeah, I mean, God, those Ninja Gaiden games from were those like mid 2000s at that point?
Yeah.
Was that like original Xbox or
the first one was original Xbox.
Yeah.
Was the second one might have been as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And then even 3 was, God, like what, 2012?
Yeah, I mean, it was a while ago, yeah. And that's the one most people kind of don't have a lot of love for, so yeah.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, Team Ninja has been busy. They've been making a lot of games over the last couple of years. Wolong, Rise of the Ronin. They work for hire stuff. They've been doing a lot of. They worked with Nintendo for a little bit on a game that I think got canceled recently. So yeah, they had a lot going on. And yeah, so it makes sense. Like, okay, Team Ninja, we're going to make a new Ninja Gaiden. Let's find a partner. But yeah, Platinum Games coming in and helping out. Very, very cool. Also, from the developer direct, they went to South of Midnight, game we've seen a bunch of times before. This is the most we've seen it. Also turns out to be, looks like a character action game. It's got a strong style. It does the kind of animation on the twos. I'm no animation expert. I heard that term because I watched Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, I'm saying that. I don't really know what I mean, but that's what it looks like. And it very, very cool term in terms of where it's pulling its inspiration from, the American South. All that stuff is really working for me. I will say, I look at the action itself, and I'm like, I don't know if this is super dynamic or winning me over from watching it, but of course I'm just gonna have to play it. How do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with some of these smaller games is when they go with action stuff, there's always this tension, I feel like, because people who are going to be drawn to the aesthetic and the narrative aren't always going to be looking for a hardcore action game. So maybe there is some negotiation on the team of do we not make this a super, super in-depth, crunchy action thing and sort of make it a little more approachable? And I think it's always a balancing act with the kind of stuff, because it's a new, it's not a legacy franchise, and they're trying to get a bunch of different people interested in this, right? So I think it is something where you'll just have to play it, but I'm sure that they're okay, it's visually distinct enough and narratively distinct enough that even if it isn't as in depth as something like a Ninja Gaiden, it'll pull people in.
Do you have the little brain reaction that I have, that when I found out that this game was $40, I'm like, I'm worried about that. Why is it only $40?
Yeah, I mean, pricing with this stuff is always so weird, right?
Yeah.
Like we were just saying, oh, I would.
Oh, hello. Did I lose you? Chat, can you still hear me? I think you could still hear me.
That puts me off. And when I see,
lost you for a second, Merritt. You're gonna have to repeat that. So we were talking about I forget what we were talking
sorry.
about. Broke. Yeah.
Yeah. Just pricing on this stuff is always so tough, right?
Yes.
40 at this point is, I don't know. You feel like that's kind of low?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think in my head it is, I see these games get announced initially, and I'm like, okay, this is another one of these big games from a big publisher, and I have a certain set of expectations, and then the only thing that has brought down those expectations is finding out it's not $60 to $70, it's $40, and these days the budget price is is $50. And really what it
Right.
is, really what it is that the last game that Microsoft put out at $40 was Hellblade 2, a game I found disappointing and had no real enjoyment from. And I'm like, what are they trying to say by this? And of course, I don't think they're trying to say anything. I think they just think that's the fair price for the game they're making. But I don't know. That again, it's a little brain thing. It's like I'm not thinking about it beyond my initial knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah. I mean, prices send signals to people,
Yeah,
right? And
clearly, yeah.
that's the signal you're getting, and I'm sure other people are as well. And I'm sure they have, a huge team of people deciding what that
Oh
price
yeah.
point should be, and there is some argument in favor of like, well, this will make it more approachable to people who might not otherwise be interested. So
Yeah. I'm sure that's actually what they're thinking there. Again, I feel like this is one I really just want to get my hands on to see how it feels, and if that action is fun, I will be very happy because everything else about it looks so fascinating and so well done. Then a pretty lengthy look at Claire Obscure Expedition 33, the French JRPG. I'm just going to call it a JRPG, and everyone's going to have to deal with it.
it's a genre at this point. Yeah.
It's a genre at this point. It's a style. Yeah, and it's. I thought that was very impressive. Part of it is I think that the JRPG elements, where big numbers coming off of enemies as you attack them, and characters on your team standing in a line. Taking turns attacking, just looked really solid. It looked very stylish. And then there is, it's French quirkiness. There's a big inflatable clown character that flies around the world. There is a monster that's a goofball that is like, doing pratfalls. I'm like, ooh, this seems like it's got the juice. So I was pretty fascinated by it. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see some DNA from stuff like Persona in the UI,
Yeah,
especially like the pop out like battle commands and things
that's
like
right.
that. Um, in terms of like the look of it, I'm not as like drawn to this kind of like, I don't know, it's sort of like a vaguely Dragon Age kind of, maybe the Frenchness of it will carry it through and give it a distinctness.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm definitely interested, and like seeing more developers try their hand at this kind of genre is fun, I think. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I do think it, like, I don't know if this is not necessarily like a shot across the bow at at Square Enix. I don't think they're going to necessarily feel the pressure from this unless this game
Right.
reviews spectacularly. But it's
Yeah.
I do look at this and I'm like, yeah, I think this is when the kind of thing when I think, hey, what should Final Fantasy be? I think it should look a little bit more like this. Not exactly, but a little bit more. So that alone is impressive. Again, we'll see. Game will come out. I think this one is also, this is $50. They're promising at least 30 hours of gameplay. Whatever that means to anybody is everyone can decide for themselves. But when I hear that, I'm like, okay, that sounds pretty fascinating. Kind of want to see more. But I thought this was a good showing. And then Doom: The Dark Ages. I think from the beginning, think this is such a good concept for Doom.
Yeah.
This is a franchise that has been resuscitated at least one time in a major way in 2016, and then Eternal, like it has its fans, but there's definitely people who like have some issues with it, nitpicks, and it just felt like it lost some steam from that sequel. And I think they did the right thing of being like, okay, let's kind of rethink once again what Doom can be, maybe go back to some basics yet again. And I don't know, from what I'm seeing, I think it's working for me. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, I'm always a sucker for first person melee combat stuff.
Yeah.
Going back to like even I played through it again like last year, the year before, the old Might and Magic game, the Heroes of Might and Magic one that was like pre Arcane, I think, or maybe it was one of the first Arcane games, I forget. But just I don't know, stuff like that's like just really fun for me, and just it makes so much sense for Doom because you already had a lot of close combat stuff with the chainsaw and then with like the glory kills. And yeah, it'll be like I was saying before, it's like Doom Eternal was so fast. It'll be interesting to see how it works in this more slowed down, like standing still kind of I think they're like saying like, oh, Doom Eternal was like run and shoot or jump and shoot, and this is more like stand still and shoot. So I don't know. I'm really excited for this. Eternal was a blast, and 2016 was great as well. So
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's surprising to me that Doom can be this many different things, but it's like, I've
Yeah.
seen it clearly. It can be, and I don't, I hesitate to say it, but the sense I get from like the boss fights that they showed off is a little bit of FromSoft inspiration, where
Mm.
the
Mhm.
stand and fight and parry system. It's like, yeah, stand in front of there, be ready to actually go one on one with this boss. And I think that's such a good idea, especially when you get the cool,
Yeah.
shield saw, I think they called it.
Mhm. The
That
buzzsaw shield, yeah.
and then the flail looked fantastic. What a good idea for a Doom weapon.
I kind of like when I saw this, I was like, "Wait, has this not happened before?"
I
Because
know,
it just
right?
seems so obvious, and I think what it was that, my brain was going to Spawn,
Sure.
because Spawn is also a thing about hell
Uh-huh.
that also did, like, a medieval thing, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, no, that's what it is." But it just feels so logical, that it's I don't know. I'm definitely, like, gonna keep an eye out on it.
Yeah, and for me, Doom's already like I'm on the record as being like, Spawn is too try hard, edgy stuff. Doom has always been able to like ride the line of it's a metal album cover and knows it is, and like I think that's one
Right.
of the best elements of Doom 2016 is Doom Guy's the humor of Doom Guy, and whenever he enters a room and all the
Mhm.
characters dealing with that, and him just kind of punching a screen when someone's trying to threaten him and stuff like that, because he's like not because he's like
Classic.
mad, because he's bored and he wants to go back to
Mhm.
killing things. That stuff owns. They maybe overdid that a little bit with Eternal, but
Yeah.
I think they could probably dial it back in here and make it work. So it's like I don't know, the vibe, the style has always been on point with Doom, and it seems like they are doing it once again here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Overall, though, I thought it was a pretty impressive show. How are you feeling about because Doom: The Dark Ages is May 15th, Clair Obscur April 24th. South of Midnight is expected out in 2025. Oh no, April 8th. Yes,
April
April
8th,
8th.
yeah.
Yes, there it is. And then Ninja Gaiden 4 is coming out this fall, and of course Ninja
Right.
Gaiden 2 Black, as mentioned, a shadow dropped yesterday, so people are playing that. We're kind of off to the races here for the first half of the year, and then Ninja
Yeah.
Gaiden 4 later in the fall. How are you feeling about the release schedule for this year? As everyone keeps talking about, oh, no one wants to do anything until GTA 6 moves. Feels like, hey,
Right, yeah.
everyone is understanding that's not going to be until at least late this year. So the fact that we're
Yeah.
getting some good stuff early this year feels pretty good to me.
Yeah, I mean, this feels like a pretty strong slate, to be
Yeah.
honest. It's a pretty widespread too. I mean, you've got like RPG stuff, more like narrative action games, and then like legacy sequels with Ninja Gaiden. So
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly. It's like, as always, we'll have to play the game, see how we really feel about them. But something to get excited about, look forward to. They do also, yes, they have Avowed coming out very soon.
Mm,
There's other games, Fable, that they mentioned. And of course, then we got, we have to hear more from both Nintendo and PlayStation when it comes to the big publishers. And yeah, we'll see. That they will both be talking more soon, I expect. All right. We had him on the show yesterday, Matt Piscatella. He posted this a little bit before we started the show. I did not have time to like get all the info from his latest December 2024 U.S. video game market sales report from Circana. So let's do it now. December 2024 projected U.S. consumer spending on video game hardware, content, and accessories declined 9% when compared to a year ago, to $7.5 billion. Spending during the 2024 year fell 1.1% compared to 2023 to $58.7 billion. And those numbers, they sound big. It includes like mobile and everything, and some
mm,
it's projected. So he is extrapolating based on the data he does have. Yeah, so video game sales, a total down 9%. Really, the big culprit here, Merritt, is hardware. Hardware sales were down 29%
right.
in December, and for the year they were down 25%. Now, again, had Matt on the show yesterday. He mentions like that we are clearly the Switch is the Switch. It's done. It's at the end of
Hmm.
its life. It is not selling as well as it once was, which is natural, expected. Apparently, it was also expected that we should have seen a drop for PS5 and Xbox Series X and S. I did just kind of like it flashed back to me this morning, Merritt. Like I was living in another state when that happened. It's like, oh, that was quite a while ago. 2020 is
Yeah,
actually 5 years ago now.
half a decade ago.
Yes, exactly. So it's like it's kind of starting to settle in. And yeah, we are
Yeah.
on the other side of that hump. What he did say though
Yep.
is the decline was more precipitous than he was expecting, and really
Mm,
than we've seen in past generations.
right.
I chalk that up to so many people rushed into this generation during the pandemic that there's just not a lot of audience left to rush out and spend
Mm,
$500 to $600 on these devices, even as a PS5 Pro comes out. Was that $700? I
right.
can't remember how much that it is. Um, but yeah, it just like there's just not a huge audience left out there to tap into, which is sort of the underlying problem with like a lot of the industry's issues at the moment, right? Where it's like consoles aren't growing and these companies keep making games for that audience and they're more expensive than ever. And it's like those two concepts are butting up against one another, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, one thing that I haven't seen a lot of people talking about, and I don't know if it's true, but just a buddy of mine over at Bungie was talking about this on Blue Sky the other day. This idea that like the market, the like demographic that's driven game sales for the last like 20 years is starting to hit like their mid 30s, 40s at this point, like millennials, right? And there's this question of like, are they going to keep buying games or are they aging out to some extent? And will that audience be like picked up by younger people? And like, I don't know, like possibly not, right?
Possibly not. Yeah, it's feeling unlikely. It is feeling like even if it is that their spending will be more diversified, the spending of their
Right.
time will be spent more on one free game that they've been playing already that has
Right.
become an
Yeah.
ingrained hobby. And then when they're not doing that, they are spending a ton of time on apps that take up a lot of their space.
Right.
With TikToks and stuff like that. That's what they're competing with. So yeah, I don't think that the next generation of kids are going to come in here and be like, yes, we love spending $500 to $600 to $700 on consoles every half decade, and then we're going to spend a ton of money on premium games each year. They've learned that is not necessarily a great way for them to do it, and they're not going to suddenly be like jump in and replace us just because we're like, hey, we want more of these games. You guys should all spend your
Right.
money. They're just
Yeah.
not going to, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think so. I mean, I think something that people in their 30s like maybe don't realize is that people who are 10 years younger than them grew up playing free to play games. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of people now who grew up playing Fortnite, grew up playing Minecraft, grew up playing Roblox even. And that's like a totally different value proposition, right? And it's like you say, like to jump from that to I will start buying like annual releases for $60 and buying this like very expensive box every few years is it's like they're gonna have a hard time selling people on that is I think the point I'm trying to make.
And I think they know that, and all this,
Yeah.
everything that they're trying over the last several years has been like
Right.
trying to prepare for that or bridge the gap to something else, and no one really knows what that looks like. But just someone in the chat pointed out, I lost. It's also the millennial cohort is actually there are more people in the millennial cohort than in Gen Z. Actually, it's the largest cohort, so then maybe there's something to that as well.
There's just a size effect too.
Yeah, just in general. But I think the bigger problem, just the way people have learned a different way of engaging with video games, and the traditional industry that had made a lot of money for a long time by making big budget games just has not come to terms with that. And really, I think part of it was we fooled them. We say, hey, we will keep spending more money every time you put one of these out. And now we're old and bitter, and all this is driven by screaming YouTubers that like want you to get mad at the game when it gets announced. And so Assassin's Creed Shadows kind of seems like it won't matter if that game is good or bad. People are just like, that's a Ubisoft slop, and that's all I'm going to feel about it. All right. Matt had some more information here. The best-selling games of December. God, it really does just speak to the problem. One new game on there, and it's Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which just came out on Xbox and Steam, and reached 14th on the chart. Yeah, it's not. I don't know, not great. Matt said he thought for only be on an Xbox and Steam, that is pretty good. When he was asked about it, and I tend to believe him when he says something like that. But also, it's like, boy, I thought that would do a little bit better than this. Of course, it's on Game Pass. It is on Game Pass. I'm sure it sold a lot of Game Pass, but I don't know. Do you think knee-jerk reaction that's pretty okay for Indiana?
I mean, yeah, it seems pretty good. Also, just I don't know how much recognition does Indiana Jones have among people who are like younger than 35 at this point.
I think it's an old white guy thing. That's kind of how
Yeah.
I'm feeling right now.
Like I like Indiana Jones, but like I just the last movie was what a year or two ago, and Harrison Ford is how old at this point?
Yeah, and that movie was underperformed, I think is the kind way of putting it.
Yeah, I mean, it maybe did better than Crystal Skull. I don't remember,
I
but
don't
Crystal
know.
Skull was like, oof. So, I mean, this feels like again one of these titles that is like it's so targeted at a specific type of person who has been playing this type of game for so long and knows who Indiana Jones is. And like by all accounts, like I've heard it's great. I haven't had a chance to play
I
it yet.
enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, like I've heard it's really well crafted and it's just a great, use of the character. But again, like it doesn't super surprise me that it only hit 14. Just again because like who I mean, younger people might have seen him in Fortnite, but like beyond that, I don't know.
Yeah, Nikki's reminding me. Harrison Ford's in a TV show from the Yellowstone guy, and it's like I have YouTube Shorts, Nikki. I know this, of course. Of course, I've seen that on YouTube Shorts.
Right, yeah.
All right. We also have the list of the best-selling games of the year because the year's over. We're getting that report. Let's see here. 2024 year top 20 best-selling premium games. By the end, Call of Duty Black Ops 6 actually did outperform EA Sports College Football 25. So once again, a Call of Duty game at the top of the charts. It did seem there for a minute that EA Sports College Football would be able to outdo that, but it didn't. Then Helldivers 2 at number 3, followed by Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. Wow. Really, I mean, there was a pent-up demand for that. Just honestly, that is anime nerds college football right there. It's the exact same thing for a different audience. But yeah, not too surprising that did very well. Yeah. NBA 2K25 at number 5. I don't think that includes digital on. Let's see, it does not include digital on Nintendo platforms. Madden NFL 25 at number 6. Then Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 from 2023. EA Sports FC 25 at 8, then Elden Ring at number 9, and EA Sports MVP Bundle at number 10. That's the one that has both Madden and EA Sports College Football in it. So yeah, let's see here. Okay, that's right. There's some more on here. If you look at this chart, there's 20 games in total. The rest is like stuff like Hogwarts Legacy, WWE, 2K24, Grand Theft Auto 5, Minecraft. Almost half of this list, about 7, I think it's 7 games, are games that did not come out in 2024. And then the newer games that did come out, most of them are very recognizable. And then there, EA Sports College Football. It's like, okay, well, we haven't had that in a while, but another sports game appealing to that same audience. And then Dragon Ball Sparking Zero may be the most surprising one on here, other than Helldivers 2.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, okay, some games can break the seal, it seems like, and break through and find an audience. But if you're not one of those, if you are just an 80 out of 100 on Metacritic, you are probably struggling to get into the top 20 best-selling games of the year. And all these games seem to have budgets that maybe demand they get into the top 20 best-selling games of the year. I don't know, Merritt. Doom and gloom left and right here, but that's kind of continuing to be how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like, this has been a problem that's been brewing for years at this point, right? But this idea of like, if a game isn't a blockbuster success, it's a failure because budgets are so high. And so now you have companies like Capcom like looking into ways of dealing with those budgets by doing things like, I don't know, looking into AI, which is that an incredibly short-sighted decision? Maybe. But I think you're starting to see developers and publishers be aware of this, and it is a huge problem, right? Because like there should be room for these mid-level successes or games that do well but aren't doing superlatively well, right? But just because budgets have swollen so much, it's like the blockbuster movie problem, right? Of if a movie doesn't make an insane amount of money, then it's a failure. And that to me is like a pretty bad place to be in for a creative industry.
Yep. And it's, movies had that burst of growth when they were able to get China on board there for a little while, but that's become a little bit more difficult in recent years. And so now they've kind of pulled back and are not exactly sure where the rest of the money's going to come from going forward. And then video games have like 10 problems that are similar to that, where it's like, oh, we've tapped out battle passes, we tapped out microtransactions, we tapped out free-to-play market. Everyone has a game already. It'll break. Eventually, something new will come along and disrupt the industry. That's kind of the one constant. But in this moment, we are in some doldrums, it feels like.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get through a few more financial stories, and then we'll talk about some previews for Assassin's Creed and what is going on with that next Resident Evil remake right after this. All right, we are back. Let's get back into it with EA lost $6 billion in market value following FC25 and Dragon Age underperformance news. This is from Andy Robinson at VGC. EA shares declined by more than 16% this week, or $6 billion in market value, following its pre-earnings announcement that Football Club 25 and Dragon Age the Veilguard both failed to meet their expectations. On Wednesday, EA warned the market that it now expects a decline in its live service revenue for its current fiscal year, after previously forecasting growth. Primarily, the decline was attributed to FC25 slowdown during the Christmas period. And that really is the bigger thing that the market is concerned about. Is live service is EA's bread and butter. They thought they would have growth. They've actually shrunk. That's going to be the thing that does scare investors to the tune of $6 billion. Not as much as people and nerds were looking forward to it. And I was like, oh man, Dragon Age the Veilguard sounds like it could turn out to be pretty good. Seems like it turned out pretty okay. Investors are not so worried about that one missing the target, but that one, it didn't help. It doesn't help that they don't have something to fall back to outside of their very successful live service games. How do you feel about the position that a company like EA is in at like right now?
God, I mean, the FC thing, I think really, like you say, is the bigger issue, right? But it's not as flashy of a story. And, you mentioned screaming YouTubers before. And so I think the narrative here is that a lot of people are trying to run with is, well, Veilguard,
it went
was
woke.
a disappointment.
Okay. Now it's broke.
Exactly. Therefore, ergo, EA is going broke. And it's true. Veilguard did not well compared to something like Inquisition, which I think in 2018 was like the best selling BioWare game ever.
Yeah.
And did like $12 million or something.
Or 12 million
1.5.
copies.
12 million copies. Yeah. So yeah, it's a pretty big disappointment compared to that. But this is, a kind of prestige single player title release that is like not the main story really. But it is like kind of a convenient target, I guess.
Do you think, because they have not done the call with investors yet, do you think that they make gestures towards like throwing that game under the bus?
I don't want to speculate, but it's possible. It could be a move to say, oh, well, we misjudged the cultural market right now. But really like the FC thing is like, that is just kind of a huge deal.
Yeah. Right? And I think like Veilguard's problems are very clearly like, it came out after Baldur's Gate 3. People want They want systems. They want a game that they can get around and mess with and affect. And Dragon Age Veilguard, for as much of a kind of triumph as it is, because it's rescued a game from becoming another live service piece of slop from EA, and they did a lot of work to fix that and put out a game that is just this solid single player experience. It is the polished game that that has no rough edges and kind of no space for players to create. And that is, I mean, God, look at it now. That's what gamers want.
Right. I mean, God, Baldur's Gate 3 has just kind of like warped the entire role-playing game like genre at this point. It's just, reality is like shifting around it. It's this black hole of like the development of that game was so long and it just was, the finished product was so good and appealed to so many different kinds of people that every role-playing game that is like even anywhere near the CRPG genre is going to be getting compared to it at this point. And so, yeah, I think Veilguard like really, really suffered for that. I also think just as a sequel to a game that came out, last decade, just the interest maybe had flagged a little bit. Obviously, there will always be Dragon Age psychos, and like I know some of them, and bless them. But for me, when I played Inquisition, I was like, oh, I can't wait to punch Solus, and then it finally happened, like years and years later, and I was like, I kind of don't, I've made peace with that. I don't.
I've moved on.
Solus anymore. We've squashed the beef. So, yeah, it's the Baldur's Gate 3 effect, and also I think just like the fact that the development was so long on it and so troubled, right?
Yep, and then of course that means it was more expensive, so expectations necessarily had to be higher.
Right.
Yeah, you said it though as well. FC is the real thing here, but also FC's financial performance feels like the weather, right? How do you like that? How do you control that? There is like that there's so many people out there that are soccer fans that are engaged in FC's, Ultimate Team, and how much can EA really even control that? Yeah, you can put out the best product possible, sure. But if interest wanes because of some reason, like something else pops up that soccer fans are paying attention to for a little bit, what can you even? I don't know. I don't know what they like. They're promising, hey, we're going to have another new update that's going to be even better, and that's going to fix all this going forward. But they have to say that. So I wonder if internally they're like, look, we don't know either.
Hard to say. Yeah.
Yep. All right. One last financial story. We'll make this one quick. Donkey Kong Country Returns HD debuted at #1 in Japan. This is from my Nintendo news. I mostly just wanted to bring this up, Merritt, because Nintendo feels like the one company that makes hardware and publishes games that still feels like if a game does really well in Japan, we're happy. Sony kind of like got too big for that to satisfy them like quite a while ago, which is why they don't focus on Japan anymore. And really, they have not had success in Japan like Nintendo has had over the last 20 years. So I don't blame them. But Nintendo was like, hey, Splatoon is a cultural phenomenon in Japan. We are all in on Splatoon going forward for the rest of our existence. And I think like when they see something like Donkey Kong Country Returns HD popping off at #1 on the charts, like a lot of people buying it. I think it's more than 100,000 copies sold in the first week, which is very good for especially a remaster of a game that's $60 that originally came out on the Wii. Do you think that kind of opens up some opportunity for Nintendo to be a little bit more interesting? Because I'll tell you how I feel. Like, I don't necessarily like it when a company's like, we're going to try to make a globally appealing game or a game that appeals to the American market, because I think most companies have a low estimation of what we can handle. And when I hear that, I'm like, oh, you're just going to, again, give us something very polished and simple. And I want something weird and interesting. Not that Donkey Kong Country Returns is that weird and interesting, but do you get what I'm putting down?
Absolutely. Yeah. It is this problem that I think also we've seen in other cultural industries too, like with movies, right?
Yeah.
And in movies, there's this phenomenon where we get fewer of these like mid-level, like comedy movies that people loved in the 90s and even into the 2000s, right? And one reason for that is because big action movies are easier to translate to different markets because they aren't as reliant on subtle kinds of comedy that are rooted in language or place or culture. So you can have these big action movies with like superheroes and set pieces and stuff that work well, even, in different locales. And I think it's true with games as well. Like there's always going to be some stuff that appeals across the board, right? Which is great, but chasing that isn't necessarily the best way to make a game that is, that appeals to this kind of international audience. So I think it is cool to have Nintendo, as much as I don't have that much interest in playing Donkey Kong Country Returns for the third time, to have a company that is satisfied with a Japanese market performance, I think is a good thing for the industry.
Agreed. That's exactly how I feel. Yes. So glad to see this. The rest of the charts is a lot of familiar stuff. Super Mario Party Jamboree still doing very well. Tales of Grace's F remastered. People are liking that one. And then the Switch OLED and the Switch Lite are the best two selling pieces of hardware in Japan still. So that's, again, that's been pretty normal for the last 20 years. Nintendo mostly dominates this chart.
Right.
All right. An insider, but kind of the insider for Capcom, has mentioned that Resident Evil 0 is the next remake from Capcom. There's getting a lot of whiplash on this one. We've heard different possibilities again and again. This is from Jonas Mackey at Game Reactor. Since the release of Resident Evil 3 Remake 5 years ago, speculation has been rife about which game in the series Capcom will remake next. Well, they did 4 after that. The one most people seem to be clamoring for is Resident Evil Code Veronica, the Dreamcast classic that is often considered one of its best installments in the series, but that too few people have actually played. But after Part 3 came Resident Evil 4. Oh, there it is. And rumor has it that Capcom is keen to take on Resident Evil 5 next, a game that also offers co-op, which could be very interesting with today's technology. So which one will it be? If we are to believe the often reliable insider Dusk Golem, who has a particularly solid track record for Capcom leaks, the answer is none of them. Instead, he writes that 0 is the next remake. Resident Evil 0 was the GameCube game that kind of came out after the first Resident Evil 1 remake for the GameCube. It took place on a train. It had it starred Rebecca. I just kind of remember like, oh yeah, Rebecca. That's the caked up one.
Yeah,
that's
Rebecca
good.
And Billy.
Yeah, exactly. People don't love that game. So maybe that is a good one to actually give the remake treatment. Because what they've done a lot of times with these games is a ton of editing, a ton of improvements, and maybe they can make Resident Evil 0 kind of a game that people are more fond of in the end. I honestly, this might be the one I'm most interested in having remade. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I am one of those people who would like to see Code Veronica
Oh, of
come out
course. Yes.
finally.
They have to do that
RE's
eventually. That they
they
have like
have to eventually, right?
yes.
But RE0 has been, it was remastered, I think, or it was on the Wii. It's ported to the Wii. Then I think it was remastered in like the mid 2010s. And that, those re-releases didn't do super well because they didn't
Mhm.
really change that much. I mean, the game did well when it came out on the GameCube, but like there is maybe space to improve it or edit it, like you say. So I don't know. I mean, it's cool. Like we're getting into some of like the weirder ones now. I feel like that fewer people played, which I think 0 or Code Veronica would be great. 5 would be kind of surprising to me.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know. 0 also has the partner dynamic, so that works as well as 5 in that respect. But
Mhm.
yeah, 5 would be God, what a different, like, time that was when that game came out, and just, like, the sort of arguments around that game, and,
Uh-huh.
like, it just feels like, I don't know, if Capcom went back to that, they would have to do some thinking about how they were gonna present that game to modern audiences.
Yep. It was in Guy Kroll, I remember had like kind of some criticisms of it. It was just like, hey, let's talk about this, and people
Mhm.
just could not handle it. They could not handle that we were going to have this discussion about the presentation of black people from Africa in a video game,
Right,
and
yeah,
yeah, I don't think we've matured enough to have that conversation yet. Still, so
yeah.
in fact, in many ways, it would be much worse this time around.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah, we didn't have the same social media apparatus that we do now back then, so
yes, and the one that could be wielded against anyone that does try to do an in-guy crawl.
right.
Um, yeah, so yeah, I agree. Like that would be one that I would be very interested to see how they try to thread that needle. In the
Mhm.
meantime, though, Code Veronica and Resident Evil 0, yeah, let's get those ones done. And really, Resident Evil 5 was an HD game to begin with. Not that
Yeah,
would stop them. But
sure.
they've not remade an HD one yet. So, it's like those games. And for example, Resident Evil 6. They're re-releasing that yet again with apparently with an updated version for Xbox Series X and S and PlayStation 5, and that game's already playable on those systems with PS4 and Xbox One versions. So maybe
Right.
that's what they'll just do with 5 and 6, which I personally think is the right move. But Capcom has a remake like machine,
Mhm.
and once it runs out of stuff, it's gonna turn its eyes to that eventually. So we'll see how that works. But
Yeah,
boy, Capcom just continues to be on a roll, and I would really like to see either Code Veronica or 0.
absolutely.
All right, hang on, I lost my place. Look, I've lost this page. Let me scroll down here. Okay, there we are. Assassin's Creed Shadows might be able to do the impossible and satisfy all fans. This is from Zach Wise and Kotaku, but really a bunch of previews came out. A lot of people had a chance to play this. They either went to an event or they did the Parsec preview over the, streaming it over the cloud. And kind of universally, people seem pretty positive on it. They seem pretty happy with it. The footage I saw, Merritt, that kind of got me was the world does look really nice. Looks really
Mhm.
vibrant and alive. Really good animations to foliage, and you're going past a rice paddy, and the birds fly out of the water as you're stepping by, and it just looks very visually appealing. And I think that's a good start. But also we've had a couple, maybe a series of games here recently, maybe Dragon Age being one of them, where positive previews come out, and then the reviews come
Mhm.
out after that, and they're a little bit below where the previews were at. And maybe companies are just getting very good at choosing what to show to the press and to influencers.
Right.
But maybe I don't want to be skeptical either. I'm like, I want Assassin's Creed Shadows to be good. So how are you feeling about
Yeah.
it after seeing some positive word about the game?
I'll be honest, I have not played an Assassin's Creed game in a minute.
I mean, you're not
So I
alone.
am
People
like
people are
yeah, I
fatigued.
right, yeah, it's just become like an annualized franchise at this point, and it's, like, kinda tough to keep up with. So, it's interesting that they're doing this, like, dual character kinda system where there's, like, a character who is more stealthy and one who is a little more, like, combat heavy. Um, I don't know, I mean, it would be cool to have an Assassin's Creed game that was, like, like critically really well received, I think that would be great. I don't know. It's like there is, I think, this trend of people like you mentioned earlier, like people calling stuff Ubisoft slop, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I don't want, I don't want bad games to come out. Like I don't want like it would be great if a Far Cry game was amazing. It would be great if Assassin's Creed Shadows was amazing. That would be awesome. So I guess I'm gonna keep an eye on it and like hope for the best. It's just been so long for me that I'm like, I don't know. But I think you have to hold out hope or at least like not wish for things like this to fail, right?
Yeah. Yes. There's no, because I do see the people that wish for games like this to fail. They all seem miserable. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'm going to try to avoid that where possible.
absolutely.
And really, like, again, someone in chat mentioned like, if this game was just called Shadows, if the Assassin's Creed wasn't attached to it, it'd be a lot easier to get excited about it. I'm like, yeah, that's a really good point. That is definitely where I'm at, where the Assassin's Creed part is actually a drag on this.
The name, yeah, it does have this exhausting effect at this point. Right?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, basically the previews say what we have seen from the trailers, that Yasuke is a traditional Assassin's Creed character that focuses on combat, and that's very fun. And then Naoe, I think is how I'm going to say it, is more similar to like some of the assassins from maybe Brotherhood and stuff like that, much more sneaky, and that's also very fun. But the combination of the two and be able to swap back and forth depending on like what a mission calls for is very satisfying. So, well, cool, good setup. Let's see if they can execute throughout a whole game. This one's coming out in March now. Monster Hunter Wilds will already be out. There will be several games. Civ 7 will be out. Plenty of stuff to take up my time. We'll see. I want to play this game, and then I want to like it enough to keep playing it after that, but we will see. All right, last couple of stories here. Bloodborne is now very playable on PC via PS4 emulation. Chris Grant came out of his editor hole at Polygon to write a story about this. He said, Digital Foundry's Thomas Morgan has donned his hunter's hat and taken up his trusty trick weapon, walking viewers through a buttery smooth 60 frames per second trip to old Yarnum, all thanks to not Sony, but instead thanks to emulators. Basically, this has been popping up more and more recently, that people are finding, hey, the work has been done. And if you have a beefy enough rig, you can actually begin emulating Bloodborne on a PS4 emulator that will run the game at 60 frames per second in a way that you could not do on PS4 natively. This is it's been a long time coming. For a while there, people were like, yeah, you can run it on PC at 1 frame per second.
Right.
And now hey, seems like we're here, and it's only going to get more performant over time. So people on less powerful graphics cards we'll be able to join the party soon. But for now, it's like, hey, if you have a 4080, 4090, you're set. Go in there and hop in. And I'm like, okay, I might do that. I think this is what Bloodborne fans should be looking toward, Merritt, because I don't think it's going to be happening from Sony and from anytime soon. It's definitely not happening now, right?
Right. I mean, yeah, Yoshida was saying that his theory was like that Miyazaki just, holds Bloodborne so dear.
Yeah.
And that he is just so busy but doesn't want to let anyone else take it, right?
Yep.
And so the PlayStation team so far has basically said, like, fine, like that's cool, like that's all right. We're not going to give it to someone else, which I get, and like that's probably for the best, but also like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Bloodborne is, as someone who played that game late, and I bounced up Bloodborne the first time I played it. I bounced off Dark Souls games the first time I played them, and then I streamed all of them a few years ago at Fanbyte and just like fell in love with those games.
Yeah.
And Bloodborne is such like, it's cliche to say at this point, but it's like such a masterpiece. It's just, it realizes what if England was real, and it's horrifying.
Yes,
but
please don't. That's scary me, you just saying it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
But yeah, it's and the fact that it is still kind of like stuck on that console is tough. So if you're able to play it through this, like, then definitely I think try to, because it's like an incredible game. And also, yeah, like at 60 frames per second, like that's pretty cool. Like,
yep.
Yeah.
That's I mean, I am a frame rate snob, so for me it's like, yeah, that's fantastic. I'm hopping in. Yeah, Shuhei Yoshida is right. He's right. That's what I've always heard.
Yeah.
At least partially right. For a long time, that was what everyone was saying that I talked to was they want to be involved when something happens with Bloodborne, and also they are too busy to be involved with Bloodborne right now. It's like, oh, okay, so it's that simple. And then there's definitely some weirdness on the Sony side, and I describe it that way because that's how it was explained to me, and the person that told me that would not tell me what that weirdness is. So that's my full transparency there. I don't know what the weirdness is, but apparently there's some weirdness. All right. Let's see. Nintendo's Switch 2 announcement reportedly impacted Steam Deck sales. I mean, we're at the point where Steam Deck is pretty old at this point. People probably, for a PC, for what is essentially a laptop that you could hold in your hands to play games on. And so that's naturally going to happen. And something new and kind of in the same space that really has dominated that space, getting a sequel was always going to do that. But, I think Valve probably isn't too worried about this. We'll have a Steam Deck 2, and that space will continue to grow alongside whatever happens with the Switch 2, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it feels like they're targeting different markets in a lot of ways. And I don't know, I've been thinking about this lately. Like, do you think we're just moving towards Nintendo being sort of the like console and publisher and developer company, and then having like just
lost you again. All right, we're gonna get her back here in a second. Hang on.
Steam Deck,
there you
the same kinds of games.
Merritt, we lost you again. You cut out right when you were saying that. We think they're going to be the developer publisher, and then it cut off there.
Yeah. Do you think like we're going to be moving towards having Nintendo being sort of the only company left doing this console publisher developer thing, and then just having a Steam Deck and other kind of like consoleized PCs?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely I think in broad strokes, kind of what is happening. Where how do people want to play the kinds of games that we're talking about on a show like this? Right. A very convenient way. The Switch kind of set out what that looks like, and now the Steam Deck is proving there's a lot of people who want to play their PC games that way as well. And really, if you can get your PlayStation and Xbox games on there, we'll take them, please, and we're going to play them here. God, that's what's happened to me. Switch and my Steam Deck. I'll stream my PS5 games to my Steam Deck, and that's the way I play them. So yeah, I think so. And really, it also just speaks to people. Yeah, they want games that are big and impressive, but they are used to having a personalized relationship with them, like holding them on a device in their hands. And if you can show them like a similar thing, and it looks like a Steam Deck or looks like a Switch, they might actually be willing to hop into that, especially if you say, look how cheap these games are on Steam sales. Not that Steam Deck has sold, tens of millions of units or something like that.
Right.
But, the PlayStation 5, while it is outperforming the PS4, it's another little tidbit that came out of Matt's thing today. It is not doing so at a pace that offsets the rising cost of developing those games. So Sony necessarily has to look elsewhere outside of its console to make money back on the games it's making, and that just naturally leads to what you've described, I think. So yeah, I think you're right. And then meanwhile, Nintendo not feeling those pressures because they put out the two best-selling Zeldas on their last platform by an order of magnitude greater than it's ever done before. And Animal Crossing is now a 50 million selling franchise on one system. And Mario Kart, Mario Kart did very well many times before, but even better now. So like they're the one console manufacturer that can put out a game that can sell 30 to 50 million copies, which is actually more than enough to continue justifying doing things the way they're doing. So yeah, I think that is exactly what's going to happen, Merritt. Yeah. All right. We got a poll question from yesterday. Let's get to it right now. There it is. Here you go. You guys can see it now. Do you think Insomniac's Wolverine releases in 2025? Most people are skeptical, 84%. 16% say yes. Now, it's worth pointing out that those leaks did mention Wolverine with the date 2026 many times. But maybe one reason to think it could have gotten moved up is it seems like that Venom game that they were going to put out in 2025 might not happen now. And if they're definitely not working on the multiplayer Spider-Man thing that was coming out around the same time as well. So, excuse me, maybe they were like, hey, let's scrap those things so we can get Wolverine done faster. That's the one possibility. And one of the new co-presidents of Insomniac this week, after taking over from Ted Price, it was coy about this question. Would not confirm or deny the game coming out in 2025. So it's like, I mean, maybe they have some big event planned where they know exactly how they're going to message that, and he didn't want to ruin that. He could still easily say 2026 at that point. But I think there's a possibility. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. 2026 was for. I feel like I heard about this game years ago, and then
Yes.
just have not heard anything since then. And I guess, I don't know, maybe the Wolverine Deadpool movie will still have kept that character relevant enough
Oh, yeah.
into 2026, but, like, that's, like, the first time, that Wolverine has been back in anything in a while, uh, and I think it did, like, bring back a lot of goodwill and, like, a lot of interest in him, but it's for that not to come out until next year. I mean, I'm sure it'll be a great game
Right.
because it's Insomniac, but just, yeah, it I guess it wouldn't surprise me if it came out later this year if they pushed that up.
Yep. I think there's a chance. I did vote no, as people could see here. It's more than likely going to be 2026, but I think there's a chance. All right. New poll question. We'll get to it here in a second. Before we do that, though, Merritt, what do you have going on? Where can people find you on the internet if that's something you want them to do? All that good
Yeah,
stuff.
God, yeah. So I put out a game called Fledgling Manor recently with a small development team called In Secret Places that I started with a couple of my friends, and it's on Steam. The game is again called Fledgling Manor. It's a visual novel about a vampire reality show that's kind of like Big Brother, except the contestants are killed when they're voted off. So people have liked it so far. It has a 100% positive rating on Steam, which is pretty cool. So, if you think you might not like it and want to bring that down a little bit and make it look a little more plausible, then be my guest. But yeah, that's it's people have really enjoyed that so far. If you like visual novels or kind of lower key experiences, it's fun. It runs great on Steam Deck. They haven't verified it yet, but we're the bad boys of Steam Deck, so it's fine. Um, and yeah, I'm mostly only on Blue Sky these days. I'm at merrittk.com on there. Not so much on Twitter lately. I still have a Twitter account, but I just haven't really been using it. But
Yep, same.
yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, and for people watching live, Marino did put a link to Fledgling Manor right there in chat.
Oh,
So
sweet. Thank you.
check it out, everybody. We'll see if we can get a link into the description as well. But yeah, congratulations on that. That's very awesome.
Yeah, thanks. It was a really fun project.
New poll question. Are you excited for Assassin's Creed Shadows after the positive previews? Or more excited, I should say. Yes or no? We'll get the results of that on Game S Mornings here on Giant Bomb. Not tomorrow, on Monday. Let's go take some days off. Get that on Monday. Speaking of Giant Bomb, today we will be doing the BCR episode where we are going to do our Fantasy Critic draft. So should be a nice lengthy one where we all try to outsmart one another, and then half of us stop playing for most of the year and then remember that there's a Fantasy Critic at the end and try to catch up. But it'll be a good time. Tune in for that. Time is sketchy because I got to run and go do something, and we'll start when I get back. I'm thinking like 1:30 p.m. Eastern, but we'll see. I've started to like be a problem to everybody else because we all have to get together to do this, and of course, then last minute something happens with me. But we'll get it done today, everybody. And then afterwards, if we have time, I might just like do like a quick UPF myself after that. Maybe see if anyone wants to hang out and do something. But it'll be later in the afternoon, maybe around like 4 or something like that. All right, let's wrap things up. Merritt, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and talking about video games. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's always great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, anytime. Thank you all for watching and listening. You are the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye. Okay, there we go.